IB Nation, welcome back to another edition of the Irish Breakdown Podcast. It's a little bit of a different day today, everybody. I was planning on taking a day off. As you can tell, my voice has not really recovered yet. I got a couple TV spots I got to do tomorrow, so I was going to help my voice, get saved a little bit. But then we had some breaking news, and we just got to talk about it. So here's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about the news about Lorenzo Styles just deciding to jump in the transfer portal. I'm going to go through a lot of different layers of this about, kind of the decisions behind it, what this means for Notre Dame, what's next, how does this impact the transfer portal for Notre Dame looking, do they need to do that, all of that good stuff. We'll dive into that. This is not going to be a mailbag show. If y'all have some questions that you have for me, go ahead and throw in some super chats and I'll answer those. But other than that, I'm not going to answer a ton of questions because, as you can tell, this voice is not going to last very long. And Ryan is still on the road. So we're going to talk about the decision that was announced today that Lorenzo Styles has decided to jump into the transfer portal. Got word this morning from a really good source that it was going to happen, had reached out to some folks in Notre Dame, didn't hear anything back, and then Pete Thamel came out with it that Lorenzo was jumping in the transfer portal. So not surprised as of this morning, not surprised that this is happening. A little bit surprised. I think that it happened, the timing of it, and I'll get into kind of my thoughts on the timing of it. I kind of felt like Lorenzo, with this decision to look at cornerback, was kind of buying into the notion of staying and finishing his career at Notre Dame. He obviously decided to go in a different direction. Big picture, it's not that much of a surprise. We've hinted about back in the winter, I was even hearing late last season that this was something that could possibly happen, that he was already talking about to his teammates and things like that. So that this isn't new. This decision of this thought of him leaving, I had hoped that he would stick around, to be honest with you, and we'll kind of get into some of the reasons why I think this decision is being made. And I'm going to talk about playing time, but look, anytime a kid leaves, it's not always just about playing time. There's kids at Notre Dame that are going to get a lot less playing time than what Lorenzo Styles is going to get this year, and they're sticking it out, they're staying. And it's also not one of those things where every kid that jumps in the portal, doesn't want to compete and all that kind of stuff. I think Lorenzo staying into spring ball, to me, is a sign that he was willing to compete. I think if he didn't want to compete at Notre Dame, he just would have left after the season. I think his willingness to stay showed that, hey, I'm willing to come here and compete. I think the first aspect of this that we'll discuss is playing time. And here's basically where it comes down to. He was battling for a spot in the rotation this spring. I think he wanted to be a starter again, as he should. He's a competitive kid and a talented kid, and was a starter last year and was expected to be the guy last year. That didn't materialize. He had a tough sophomore year. I think he battled and tried to bounce back. I thought his body language this spring was good. I thought he competed. I just thought he still fought the ball a little bit, and the reality is there just was better players in front of him. And I think what became very obvious is two things became very obvious this spring to me, to other people in this conversation, and that, in this decision-making process for him, is number one, that Tobias Merriweather is the clear X starter for Notre Dame right now. And the gap between him and Lorenzo only grew as spring went on. And that's from what I saw with my eyes, but more so what I've heard from a lot of different sources, around the program, that Tobias had kind of entrenched himself as, he's going to be the guy at that position. And so Lorenzo's kind of competing to get, so he's the starter, but we're going to rotate. How much am I going to play? Okay, what about the slot? Well, I think Jaden Thomas is by the end of the year last year was Notre Dame's best receiver. He has done nothing this spring to kind of take that thought of, okay, JT's ready to just go to the next level. I think that they really like him in the slot. I think they also realize there's some other things they can do with him as part of moving him around. And then, of course, you had the Chris Tyree decision to move him into the slot. Once Chris Tyree moved to the slot, the notion that Lorenzo could really be that swing guy between those two positions took a hit. If Chris Tyree did anything to show, any kind of prowess at the slot. And of course, Chris Tyree very quickly started to show prowess at that position. And honestly, a little bit to my surprise, I've said in the past, people have brought up on this show plenty of times, hey, what about Chris Tyree to the slot? And I've said, no, I don't see it. I don't think he's that guy. I don't know if he's a full-time slot. And so far, it looks like I was wrong on that, which is a good thing. I'm glad that I was wrong on that because that adds a dynamic weapon outside. But it also kind of locked in sort of that 1-2 punch into the slot. Lorenzo could maybe play some boundary, but that's not really his ideal position. I don't think he has necessarily the ball skills to be that guy. He's more of an XZ guy that could play boundary in a pinch. We talked about that last year with certain looks. There's things that you can do with him at boundary, but I don't know if it's something that'd be a full-time move. So the path to him becoming a starter was pretty much blocked. But it's more than that to me. Now, this isn't necessarily what I'm telling you, like what Lorenzo told me or what sources are, but I'm just telling you the reality of the situation of what I believe factored into this decision by Lorenzo. And that is that from now, this is something kind of I'm reading between the tea leaves a little bit, but I have been hearing a lot the last couple weeks that Rico Flores is absolutely closing on Lorenzo Styles and pushing for playing time. He's been that good this spring. And Rico's been kind of playing a lot of X. Braylon James has been playing a lot of W, and Jaden Greathouse has been playing a lot of Z. Well, as all those three guys really emerged, the staff felt really good about these kids being willing to go out and play as rookies. You read, if you didn't read it, go to irishbreakdown.com. Sean Stiers has a story, a couple different stories about the receivers and Chancey Stuckey on there. One of them is about just the freshman. And I mean, he had the audacity, and I mean this in a positive way, to say that we hit on all three of the guys that are here already. There's a ton of confidence in that class, including most importantly, among the quarterbacks. I talk to people around the program, and you hear the older receivers talking to people in a very complimentary fashion of the younger players. And when the veterans are kind of bought in that, hey, these kids can play, I think that's good for the overall roster health. But I think if I'm in Lorenzo's shoes, and I'm kind of speaking for him, this is my opinion, and I'm saying, okay, Tobias is pulling away from me, and this cat over here, Rico Flores, is I'm now battling him for the number 2 job. Forget number 1 anymore. That's done. I'm now battling for the number 2 job. Then all of a sudden the coaches come to me about playing defense. I think he genuinely thought about maybe that's the move. But here's what I think ultimately is going to led to him jumping in the portal is the rumblings that we heard back this winter from various sources around the program was that Lorenzo's initial thought was he was going to transfer probably to Ohio State and move to corner. And so Notre Dame obviously broached that subject with him. And my thought is perhaps this is the thing where if I'm going to play corner, then I'm going to go play corner at Ohio State, where to be honest with you, there's a greater need, to be honest with you, at this point in time, especially, with probably Denzel Burke and that other kid. I always forget his name, Cam Brown, I think, that are going to be gone after this year, most likely. So I think that's what I'm hearing, that Ohio State could be that option if Ohio State wants him. And I don't have sources at Ohio State that could confirm this for me, but I'm just telling you on this side of things, I do think Ohio State is where he'd like to go. Obviously, his dad played there. His dad was a heck of a football player there at Ohio State for 2 years, left as a junior. I think it was 3rd-round draft pick. Had like over 120 tackles each of his last 2 years. His brother Sonny is there now, and there's a lot of hopes on how good Sonny's going to be. Sonny's going to be a sophomore this year, but this should be Sonny's freshman year. He enrolled a year early. He reclassified, so obviously he'll get a chance to be a teammate with his brother if that's the decision that he decides to go. So I think the playing time aspect of it, you look at it and say, okay, he could go to corner and compete at corner. But there's Benjamin Morrison. There's Jaden Mickey, who had a great spring. There's Christian Gray, who had a great spring until his injury. You've already got some kids committed in next year's class. It was not a given that he was going to go to corner and just step into a spot. So I just think wherever Lorenzo looked, it was just going to be hard for him to just really lock down that I'm the guy spot. And I think, I don't know if it's going to be any easier to Ohio State, but I just think that factored into it. And I don't know how much Lorenzo kind of wanted to see it through here, which is okay. I mean, again, Notre Dame's not necessarily for everybody. And for some kids, it's worth all of the struggle to be here if you're playing. For some, it's not worth it if you're not playing. And I just think ultimately, when you consider where his dad is from and where his dad played, where his brother is, where his family still lives in the area, I just think it makes a lot of sense for Lorenzo to want to go back to that direction. And I don't really fault him for it. The one question I've had people ask me is like, why would you do this now? Why would you leave now and not play in the spring game? And honestly, I think it makes a lot of sense not to play in the spring game if you're in Lorenzo's shoes. It's not a game. It's not a real game. It's not a bowl game. It's not a regular season game. It's one of those things where if you know you're leaving and you go play in that game, number one, your heart's probably not going to be in it unless you have this, hey, I just want one last chance with my guys or something. But number two is, what if he gets hurt? What if he goes out there and hurts his knee or breaks his ankle or gets a bad concussion? Something happens when he in the spring game, and all of a sudden his options for transferring are diminished because he's now got a severe injury. So, I've said in the past, I don't like kids who are going to, see it through, see the thing through. When I'm talking about the regular season, this is a little bit of a different story where if he was my child and he was like, I'm leaving, I say, are you sure? There's no unringing this bell. Are you sure you want to leave? Yeah, Dad, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to leave. I'd say, hey, look, then you need to make the decision now. Your heart's not going to be in playing in that game. I know you want to finish it with your boys, but look, here's the deal. You're making a business decision right here at this point in time. You want to have a career playing football. You would like to play beyond the college level. You can't risk going out there and something bad happening, which can happen in a spring game. If this is the decision that you're certain you want to make, then it's time to make that move now. So I honestly don't. If Lorenzo had decided that he was going to transfer, I honestly have no problem with the timing of this decision because it is a spring game. Lorenzo stayed for last week's scrimmage. And as I've said to y'all in the past, the players knew, everybody knew that that last week's scrimmage is going to be the one that is going to determine depth charts and where things are going into the summer. The blue gold game is not. He stayed for that. He competed in that. He put his best foot forward in that, and just wasn't enough. So I think that kind of factored in. And for people who are questioning, I saw a question about, why would he go in front of the media? I don't think Lorenzo had made his ultimate decision just yet. I think this is something that they've kind of decided in the last couple of days with a lot of talk with the family that, hey, this is what I'm going to do. So I don't think that is something. So I think, I think the draw to Ohio State, the playing time, I think there was a lot of frustration on how last year went, and I'm not sure how much he kind of got past that. There was a lot of expectations on Lorenzo last year. He didn't play well. Some of it was on him. I don't think he thinks all of it was on him. And, just from different sources I've talked to, and I think that frustration has kind of lingered. And now he's going to his junior year, and he just hasn't been able to get that spot back. So I think those are some of the things that factor into why Lorenzo did it. The timing of it, I think, is just he's finally came to a decision. You had that big scrimmage last Saturday. Take some time to process it. You're getting ready to go through a walkthrough this morning, and then the game tomorrow. So I think the timing was okay. I finally come to my decision. Let's make this move. I don't think there was any intent to deceive in the interview the other day. I just think it over time it just said, hey, this is what's best for me. So what does this decision by Lorenzo Styles mean for Notre Dame? It's a very interesting one. Number one, it gets them down to 85 scholarship players, and Lorenzo will not be the last guy to transfer. There's another guy. It's out there now. We can discuss it. The name is out there now. We fully anticipate Prince Colley jumping in the portal at some point in time. I don't know if that's 100% decided at this point in time, but I've been hearing this for 3 months, and there's been one school that constantly gets mentioned. We obviously haven't seen him at practices for a long time. He's been injured and all those type of things. So, but I expect him to be another guy that we believe is going to jump in the portal. And there's going to be more. I don't think it's going to be a lot more, but there'll be more. And now Notre Dame hits the portal. I think obviously safety is going to be a position they look for. But I think the receiver thing is interesting because you take Lorenzo out of the receiver depth chart now, and you're down to 9. You're down to 9 receivers, which is 8 currently on the roster. So you have obviously the Matt Salerno. You have, I'm going to just kind of go by class. Matt Salerno is the senior. You got Dion and Jaden Thomas are your juniors. Tobias is your sophomore. You've got Chris Tyree, who senior, forgot to mention him as a senior, but redshirt junior. So that's 5 veterans. You've got the 3 freshmen, Braylon James, Jaden Greathouse, Rico Flores. And then this summer, you bring in Caleb Smith from the Texas, the high school kid, Caleb Smith. So you'll have 9 receivers this summer. If I'm Notre Dame, honestly, I don't go to the portal. And I made this argument last week when we did the Caleb Smith show. I don't think there's a need to go to the portal. You've got your sort of your top group, right? You right now projecting going out of the spring, your starters are going to be Braylon. Excuse me, Braylon James. About to break some news that I mean to break. It's not news. I just misspoke. You've got Deion Colsey in the boundary. You've got Tobias to the field. You've got Jaden Thomas in the slot. You've got Chris Tyree in the slot, which should allow Jaden to play a little bit all over. You've got those 4 veterans. This him leaving just opens a spot wide open for Rico Flores to step through and get into the rotation there at the X position. I think he flat out is going to be in that mark now. And then you also have Matt Salerno, who showed last year in the proper role, he can help you. I was tweeting the other day about how I'm watching the South Carolina game and on Logan Diggs' touchdown in the 4th quarter. I mean, Matt Salerno has the block that springs that thing. The right side of the offensive line doesn't get off the ball on time. They don't. There was a mix-up with the snap, but Matt comes in, pushes a DB inside. Logan bounces right outside of him. The problem last year was they used him too much and in certain situations that they shouldn't have asked him to play in. But Matt can help you as your 6th receiver. Then you have the other 2 freshmen that competed. Jaden Greathouse continued to emerge all spring. Braylon was really emerging, and then he had the concussion, and then he has had to, obviously hasn't been full go. I was told today that he is cleared to play in the blue gold game. So I think that you're there, and so you've got those 2 guys. They're only going to get better. And then, of course, you bring in Caleb Smith. So from a receiver standpoint, the ideal number of receivers 10. But my concern is if you bring in another receiver, he's going to take snaps away from those freshmen. And I think the way that they've been playing this spring, I don't know that I would want to do that. I haven't heard back from anyone at Notre Dame yet about what their plans are. Full disclosure. But I'd be a little surprised, honestly, if they did go to the portal, unless it's just some 5th-year graduate guy from an Ivy League or something like that that's just okay being, just on the team and help out in an emergency situation, just in case, they have that need. I think that could be something. They also have some quality walk-ons that can give you some help on the scout team, along with some of the freshmen that maybe aren't going to be playing next year. But here's another thing that factors into it. Right now, you're pretty thin at running back and tight end for the spring, right? You've got a lot of guys out, but coming into the fall, you're going to get Jadarian Price back. You've got Jabron Payne. Logan Diggs is going to get back to being healthy. You've got Jeremiah Love coming in, who's a 6'1", 195-pound running back that can do things out of the backfield, can do some things maybe at receiver in a pinch, as sort of he's a running back, but he can also do this if you want to get him onto the field. So you're going to have, plus obviously Audric and Jabron Payne, you're going to be pretty deep at running back. So what do you got? Audric Logan, you've got Jabron, Jadarian, and Jeremiah Love. 4 of those kids, well, really all 5 of them catch the ball very well. 3 of those 5 kids can do things out of the backfield, meaning they can line up in a 20 or 21 personnel outside. And then whether Jabron Payne can do some things in the slot. Obviously, Logan Diggs has done that in the past. In high school, I should say, I think he can do some things. I think Jadarian Price can do some things if he's healthy, although I prefer him kind of out of the backfield. But he did some things in high school. He'd line up in the slot, run seam routes. And then, of course, Jeremiah Love can do that. So, I mean, really, you could make a case for 4 of the 5 can do that. And then you've got tight end depth. Holden Stace and Mitchell Evans are healthy. I mean, I don't think Mitchell has anything serious. So he'll be healthy in the fall. You should be getting Cooper Flanagan back in this spring. You'll have Kevin Bauman maybe. But at some point in time next year, you'll get Eli Raridan back as well. So I think when you look at it, there's a lot of pass game weapons that Notre Dame has. I don't know that another portal receiver is going to fix that. I think the only way for me, I'd go into the portal is if there's a kid that's like wow, that's just, we can't pass that kid up. That kid comes in here and he's one of our dudes right away. I think that's the only way you can go to the portal. I don't think going for depth is really the answer, because are you going to guarantee that guy's going to come and be happy and stay if he gets beat out? We've already seen this happen, right, with Caleb Smith. Came in, things weren't necessarily going the way I thought he would want to go. He would want them to go. There was some other stuff going on with him off the field, and and he decides to retire from football. So unless you can get a kid who's just a numbers guy to help you on the scout team, maybe an Ivy League kid or a MAC kid that just wants to get his degree from Notre Dame, maybe get into coaching or something like that, then I don't think going to the portal really makes a lot of sense for Notre Dame. Unless you have a summer injury, and that's where it gets a little bit challenging, is if there's a summer injury that can maybe force their hand a little bit. And that's kind of the counter argument would be, well, if you have that injury, what if it's too late and you can't go to the portal? That's a very fair thing to discuss. But I think the depth at other positions helps you overcome that, because you're still going to have 8 scholarship receivers. You're only going to play 5, at the most 6 in your rotation on game day. So I think you're still okay. And look, we saw Notre Dame go into games last year with 4 to 5 healthy receivers. You'd have to have a lot of stuff go wrong for a second straight year to be in the pickle that you were in last year as a football team. And I just don't see that. I think there are needs other places that I would want to fill that roster. And I think now that you've seen the freshmen now for 14 practices, about to see 15, these kids can ball. And these kids can help you. And there's positional flexibility. I just personally don't see the need there. Now, corners where it's interesting as well, because I really believe that from some sources that I had spoken to, I would not have been shocked that if Lorenzo stayed, that he wouldn't have just eventually just become a corner kind of full time. And that's kind of what I think. There were some people leaning towards that because of what I just talked about. A receiver, you have the depth that you needed there. He was. I said this to somebody earlier today. I did ask this one, or made a comment. I wanted to see what their response would be. And I said, my opinion is that from what I saw, from what I've heard, Lorenzo was closer to Rico Flores than he was to Tobias. There was a better chance that Rico would pass Lorenzo than Lorenzo would pass Tobias. I think when that's the case, you're going to look at possibly, okay, can he help us over here? Because you do have some injuries over there. You do have an injury to Christian Gray, and I don't know what the prognosis is for him. There are some other guys that have battled injuries or, had other issues, and can they stay healthy? And you're an injury away to one of your guys from, being in a little bit of a tough spot there. Obviously you got Jaden Mickey and Chance Tucker and Ryan Barnes, but those guys don't have a lot of experience. And as good as those players are, and I like all 3 of them, none of them are the athlete that Lorenzo Styles is. I mean, Lorenzo's a 6'1", 195-pound kid who's one of the 5 to 6 fastest kids on the team. And he has experience playing that position. So I think that there was a thought that he could really go help him over there. Now that he's not there, I do think that you have to look at, is there a cornerback that could help us out, maybe as a nickel guy or something like that? I don't know that it's you just take a guy for depth. I think if you're going to take a guy, you're taking a guy because you think he can help you. Because you do have Benjamin Morrison, you are going to get Cam Hart back. Jaden Mickey's had a very good spring. Chance Tucker's had a very good spring. Ryan Barnes is coming along, and then obviously, when you look at a situation with Clarence Lewis really working in the slot, also playing outside. You've got Thomas Harper playing in the nickel a lot. I think the bigger need to me, in my opinion, is if you've got an extra spot, I would not use it at receiver. I would not use it at corner. If I have an opportunity to take a second portal guy, I would look for 2 safeties. I really would, because you've got Xavier Watts, you've got Ramon Henderson, you got DJ Brown. They've all played a bunch of football. I expect Xavier's going to be the guy there, and then Ramon and DJ are kind of battling for who's going to be 2, who's going to be 3. Ben Minich had a nice spring. He's a freshman. He's going to be a little bit limited. Adon Schuler missed all the spring. I don't know if you're ready to definitely assume that those guys are going to be ready to play and help you this year. And then, of course, you could say, hey, we'll move Thomas Harper back there. I think that hurts what you're going to get from Thomas Harper, who also missed most of the spring from contact. I mean, he did a lot of coverage things and all that. He just couldn't do contact, but they got a chance to see what Thomas Harper can do. But you recruited Thomas Harper to play nickel, not to play safety. So if you have to start kind of cross-training him there, I worry that you take away from what you brought him here to do. I would move Clarence Lewis. I would consider moving Ryan Barnes. I don't know if the staff views that as the answer. Look, I can give my opinion and I can say, hey, I think this is what they should do. But the reality is that there's a reason the staff has been hesitant to make those moves. I don't know what they are, but there's clearly a reason, agree or disagree with those. And so I look at it and say, hey, this is clearly something they're going to do. I think that this would be a situation where looking at a couple safeties that can come in and really help you would be great. One for sure that can definitely help you. And if there's another guy that, projects as more of a depth guy that'll play special teams, that's good too. But I really think safety, I would bring in a couple safeties, in my opinion, and maybe a safety that can play some other positions. Because Thomas Harper's coming off of a shoulder injury. Maybe have someone who's got a little bit of nickel experience in case he goes down. That's something that I would look into. So I think right now for Notre Dame, I think they're the thing that they have there is it's more about just looking for extra safeties is where I would spend my time. I don't think there's a need at corner unless you think you're going to lose somebody else at corner. I don't think there's a need at receiver unless you think you're going to lose somebody there or somebody's injured. And I am not aware of either of those things being true. So that's where I would focus my time. I think you've got enough talent at receiver, enough talent at running back, enough depth at tight end and talent at tight end that you got plenty of pass game weapons. I mean, let's do the math, guys. We have 9 scholarship receivers, 5 running backs, 5 tight ends, right? 6 tight ends, but 5 that I consider true tight ends. I think David Sherwood I view as kind of more of an H-back type of guy. That's 19 guys that are pass game options. There's a lot of different personnel groupings, 20 personnel, 21 personnel, 11 personnel, 12 personnel, 10 personnel, 22 personnel you could do some things out of in certain situations that give you plenty of options to say, hey, we can eat up those snaps that maybe a 6th receiver would have given us or a 5th receiver would give us if there are some injuries that allow us to still be an explosive, dangerous offense as long as the quarterback position is where you need to be. So that's where my focus would be if I'm Notre Dame. I think what this decision by Lorenzo is showing as well, not so much his decision, but what led to his decision is that everything we've heard about Tobias Merriweather is that's where the staff is going with this one, that he is the guy. I think if Lorenzo, one thing I was told by a source today is like, he didn't want to be on the sidelines. He wants to play. And he was going to play at Notre Dame, but it wasn't as much as I think he wanted because it was obvious to everybody that number 5 is the guy there, is the guy at X. And Lorenzo competed this spring and battled. Like I said, I thought his body language was good, but he's just not in the same ballpark right now as Tobias Merriweather. I think it also speaks volumes to the faith that this staff has in Jaden Thomas and the freshman class being as good as advertised. Those are all factors into this as to why I think this move happened, and then also why I think that Notre Dame is good there. Now, they may decide to go numbers. I think as a staff, you got to think about that. They may decide to get another number guy. I would not. That's just kind of where I'm at. So that's kind of the latest to everybody on that one. I it's obviously unfortunate. I always want to see kids stay and get their degrees and all that, but I have no ill will towards Lorenzo. I don't think Notre Dame fans should either. I think that if your thought is, he didn't want to compete, I would argue that he did. He did compete. He did stay and compete. I think if Lorenzo didn't want to compete and wasn't willing to battle and compete, see it through, I think he would have left in December. That's just what I think he would have done, or left in January. So I think he said, hey, I'm going to stay. I'm going to battle. And he battled, and he just some other guys were better. At least a couple guys were better. And then some younger kids showed up and were even better than he was, or at least at times proving that they could soon be better than he was. So that's the discussion there. I did get one super chat, as I mentioned before. I'm not doing a mailbag today. I just don't have the voice for a mailbag today. If you got couple super chats, I'll answer those. But I did get one here from Floyd Genovese. Thank you for the super chat, Floyd. I appreciate you very much. Hopefully I pronounced your name correctly. It says, I'm a truck driver and do most of my driving at night. Thanks for doing all the shows you do. It helps me get through my driving. I appreciate that, Floyd. And it doesn't encourage me to talk about this now because I'm getting ready to I'm losing my voice, but there are some other shows we're going to be doing. Some may be live, some may not be. I'm the specifics of it working out, or I'm not sure yet, but there'll be night releases, whether it's, taping a show and publishing it at night, or just doing a show at a quick hitter live show at night. The premise is going to be something shorter, something like this, where pick a topic, I come in, I talk about it, I give my rant, I give my opinion. Here it is. Let's roll. Peace out. See y'all tomorrow, kind of thing. So I'm thinking about doing something like that on IB. I'm thinking about maybe doing something like that at CFB Nation as well, kind of talking more national football. I'm just not sure specifically how it's going to go, and I don't want to necessarily dive too much into the specifics of it until I really get all that down. But there's going to be some more things we're going to do here. As I mentioned before, for those of you that like listening to Lucky Lefty and the CFP All-America show and our other stuff that we do on that channel, and you're getting it on the Irish Breakdown feed now on your podcast app, that's going to eventually go away, and it's just going to only be on the CFP Nation. So you definitely want to take some time right now and go subscribe to the CFP Nation channel, so you can continue to get everything that you need to get from Lucky Lefty, from CFP All-America, and then all the new stuff that we're going to do. Ryan Roberts is Rise and Draft stuff is on there as well. That's going to be more seasonal. That won't be a year-round thing, most likely. But we'll see. Never know. We'll see if it can grow some popularity and go there. So we'll have a lot more for you, Floyd, and for everybody else. But that's what the offseason is about, right? How can we make our product better? And I want to do the best that we can for y'all as expanding coverage, different types of content, and all that kind of stuff. So we'll always keep our eyes open on ways that we can make it better. It doesn't mean we're going to stop doing the long shows during the day. I hope people understand that. Like, that's just who we are. It's what makes us different. I get that everybody's not into long shows. That's cool. It's all good. You can only listen. You only have to listen for a certain amount of time. But I also want to have a different type of content, so that way everything isn't exactly the same thing. And also, so it's still fun, still fun for me. And so, maybe people get a kick out of the rant. So maybe kind of doing those in my individual things, not like rants where I'm going to get on there and sound crazy, but just, hey, this is a topic I'm passionate about this week, and here's what I'm going to talk about. So do a lot of that stuff as well. So again, Floyd, thank you so much for the super chat. Hey, everybody, thanks for being on with me. This really quick show today. I know it's not long, but as you can tell, I don't have a lot of voice left. I'll hopefully be back tomorrow after. We'll have a post-game show, just whether or not how long I'll be on it or not remains to be seen. Hopefully I'll feel a lot better tomorrow. I feel better today than I did yesterday. So it's starting to come back more and more and more. And, hopefully I'll be good to go by tomorrow. And of course, we're absolutely ready to rock and roll on Monday. So thanks for joining me today. Obviously 5:00 tonight, IB Nation Sport Talk is going to have their rapid fire. I'm sure they're going to talk more about this. I'll call the guys and make sure that they have the latest on everything before their show starts. And so if there's anything new, I'll make sure to let Sean and Vince know what the deal is, and you can listen to them then. So that'll be tonight, 5:00. It's the Friday rapid fire section that they do. And I'm sure everybody be ready to rock and roll. If you haven't done so already, everybody, do me a favor. Also sign up. We had a bunch of people sign up recently. Sign up for the message boards at boards.irishbreakdown.com. If you $4.99 a month or $49.99 for an annual membership, we also have a booster club. It's the blue, the gold, the shamrock, the blue, and the gold. If you sign up for those, you get some little extra treats. If you sign up for the shamrock or the blue club, you get an IB club mug. And it looks like this, but it says club on it, and it only goes to club members. They're the only ones that get it. And then you also get a shirt that's like this, but it'll have green. It'll have the green IB, and it'll have IB Nation. You can get it in green, navy, charcoal, gray, and pink are the colors we have that. If you sign up for the gold club, you get the mug and the shirt. If you sign up for blue or shamrock, you get the mug. And it's just something as sort of a thank you for people that have chosen to join those booster clubs. You can check those out as well at boards.irishbreakdown.com. Thanks for being with me, everybody, and I'll talk to all of you again soon. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, share this podcast. Make sure you've signed up to our Irish Breakdown podcast channel if you have not done so, and, of course, the CFP Nation channel as well. And, as always, sign up for the message boards at boards.irishbreakdown.com. Thanks for joining me today, everybody, on the Irish Breakdown podcast.